As you can see, this is those of you who ever wanted to be part of the revolution and the rock show at once, here is the chance. So you can see that the balance is still unclear, and the tipping point has not been passed yet. It's 5 a.m. in Kiev now, and the revolution is still ongoing, and this is the really, really pivotal point. The shaky balance has been shifting back and forth between the protesters and law enforcers, although it's largely unclear which law do they enforce right now, because strictly speaking they are acting illegally against the peaceful protesters. They have no mandate, according to the law, to attack or dismantle these barricades, because the protesters have been legitimately there. The update from the U.S. ambassador that the opposition demonstrates resilience, the peaceful resilience worthy of a Gandhi, and the church bells are ringing now. This time, Ukraine has faced a much more organized adversary than it did during the Orange Revolution. An adversary who still is arrogant enough to use force against the peaceful protesters, against the people of Ukraine. What we can see is the lights going down on the Maidan. Some of the lights going down. The street lights apparently went down, and it's getting darker now. SOS, the medics are asking for lemons and milk for those who were poisoned by gas. The gas that was spread by the riot police. Once again, for you to understand, strictly speaking, the police have nothing to do there. According to the law, they have nothing to do there but protect the citizens, protect the peaceful protesters. What they're doing with all this pushing and pulling and dismantling the barricades is unsolicited and basically unlawful. There are more and more protesters on the square, the whole Maidan, and it's still unclear what's going to be happening in the minutes and hours to come. So far, the authorities demonstrated resolve in opposing the protesters, not coming to some sort of compromise. So the balance is still very shaky, and we've heard the reports that the medics are SOSing. They require lemons and milk for those protesters who were poisoned by gas. You will see some more footage of community services dismantling the barricades. We can see that the crowd is mixed now. Um, People are just standing, and it seems like one big crowd now. Um, no more pushing and pulling anymore, at least for now. We don't know what kind of orders are circulating right now among the law enforcers. Absurdly enough, they're called riot police, and it's them who are causing all the riot this night and several previous nights. They've been the instigators and the rioters, largely, because people were protesting peacefully. And this whole absurd situation of the defunct government, which is not doing anything but arresting the innocent, is not doing anything but attacking the innocent. So these whole protests were caused by the complete loss of legitimacy of the government. And their last resort, as we can see now, the last resort of the government is violence. And so the question is, why have they accumulated so many riot police here? What do they want? Maybe the law enforcers are unsure how to act because they're waiting for, they're trying to decide what to do. And they decided to see if there will be more people arriving, or this is the average amount that is going to remain on the square. We can only speculate what kind of talks and negotiations are happening at this moment behind the scenes. So to recap what was happening over the night, for those of you who joined us recently, it started rather peacefully tonight, but since 11 p.m. we had some alarming tweets that there is an expected crackdown later this night, and initially we were laughing those tweets off because we've heard a lot of cry wolf over these days. There was an expected crackdown basically every night, but it turned out that this time the alarm was true, and somewhere at about 1 a.m. or 1:30, half past 1 a.m., what we saw was riot police and paramilitary approaching the square from many sides at once. And so over the course of several hours, there were clashes between the protesters and the paramilitary, pushing and pulling and securing patches of ground. But the most important which has been done so far is that the barricades are now completely dismantled. There are no barricades anymore on the streets in the center of Kiev. Then later the police were dismantling and toppling some of the tents occupied by the protesters. You see there are numerous ranks of the paramilitary. There are some buses, some ambulances, and we wonder how many people are standing there. So the crowd is interspersed. It's really patchy. This is the main bulk of the riot police standing there, thinking probably what to do, or expecting new orders. Expecting possibly new orders. And people are coming slowly but steadily, they are streaming to the streets of Kiev, and the message is that the general message is there is no work today. There is no way to work where the last stand is happening here. This is the last stand of justice in this country, the last chance to really win. Because strictly speaking, there is a big question about the legitimacy of the police actions here. It's the reason for serious argument, and many people maintain that police have no mandate over these peaceful protesters. They were acting basically unlawfully. An interesting note was received from Catherine Ashton recently. She said that the government of Ukraine did not necessarily have to wait till midnight in order to finally start talking to their people. But this is not the first time when the police are acting brutally and just like thieves and thugs in the small hours when the people are most vulnerable. The news about current developments in Maidan are spreading fast, and people are arriving to Maidan to support the protesters. This is the last stand because the government finally made their move, and it's not the smartest of moves. You can say that. Again, they had all the opportunities to really balance the situation out, to strike some kind of compromise. They failed all of these chances, all of those opportunities. And what they did, they sent the riot police in the middle of the night to disperse the protesters. So we can see that the last resort of the government apparently was intimidation and violence. And the night is far from over. It's still the small hours and we don't know what's going to happen. The orders to the police may come at any moment and we don't know what these orders may be. Judging from the unrestrained violence that was the subject of many angered discussions over these weeks, judging from that trend, you can expect anything from this government. You can expect any extreme, unprecedented even measure, because they don't take their protesters as citizens, they take them as criminals. And this is a dangerous sign. This is what caused these protests in the first place, because the taxpayers suddenly realized that they're not paying their taxes to the people who are about to protect them. They're paying their taxes to the people that are armed and dangerous, and they are basically attacking them using their taxpayers' money. And this is a clear sign of something very unhealthy going on in the state. So this is the short recap of how these protests started in the first place.